Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today we're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about sales, podcasting, and who knows what else. We have Donnie Boivin here. And Donnie is, he's a podcast host himself. He's got a Success Champions podcast, which is fantastic. If you haven't checked it out, highly recommend it. But he also has 2 decades of experience in sales, and he's going to show you what it means to be successful in business. He's going to talk about his story, his ups, his downs, and everything in between. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to a great conversation here. And we're also excited that you're here because you're the reason why we do this podcast. I mean, I love hanging out. Donnie and I have had great conversations already on the phone. But the reason why I record these is so that you can experience it as well. And you can be inspired to be the difference maker that you're capable of being. I believe that every single person has value, tremendous value to bring to the world. And we want to see you do that. And so we'd love to hear your story and how you're doing it or how you're planning to do it and how we can support you in that. You can go to leaderstransformation.com and let us know what you're up to. You can also, of course, find us on social media. But we're just really glad you're here. And I trust that this will inspire you and equip you with the tools you need to be the leader of transformation that you're capable of being. One other thing, actually, I wanted to mention is a book that I recently contributed to. So I'm doing a plug for this, Power Up Superwoman. Dominic Damaski was on my show a while back. Great episode. You can also find that on leadersoftrandsformation.com. And he came to me and asked me if I would be interested in being part of this book and sharing my story of overcoming. And so the whole book is actually from different women who have experienced difficult times in their life in various areas of their life and how they overcame it. So if you're interested in getting a copy of that, you can go to leadersoftrandsformation.com/resources. And if you like this podcast afterwards, which I think you're going to have some fun with us here today. It's going to be a good time. Go to iTunes afterwards and leave us a rating and review. It really does help us get a greater reach. We're in 120 countries right now, and we just want to continue to extend that out. So thank you for that. And Donnie, let's talk about, I know you've had quite the journey. You were in service, and then you got in sales and so forth. So tell us a little bit about your journey to being a business owner.
Yeah, no kidding. First, thanks for having me on the show. And guys, seriously, go do her the huge favor of leaving a rating and review. As a podcaster, that's how we're able to touch so many more lives. So jump on iTunes and go leave her a rating. So thanks for having me on here, girl. I mean, I've been looking forward to this one in this chat and just hanging out. I wish I could say I went in the Marine Corps because I was like being that whole patriotic type thing. But the truth of the matter is I didn't know what the heck I wanted to be when I grew up. So the Marine Corps, my brother had gone in the Marine Corps. So that kind of just became that next choice in my life for me. And it was, depending on who you ask, it was a really, really smart move, because I needed some growing up to doing in my life. But mom and dad would probably tell you that it kept me out of going to prison or really getting into some stupid trouble, because that was definitely the path I was heading down. But I got out after 4 years, and luckily, unlike a lot of guys who get out nowadays, I had a job as soon as I got out with my best friend at the time and his dad. And that set me down the path of sales because I didn't like crawling around in attics and underneath houses and dealing with all the nastiness of people. So that's where my sales career started off. And it wasn't necessarily by choice. It was more people were like, oh, you're good at talking to people. You should go sell, which is the stupidest advice to give anybody in the world, because there's a heck of a lot more to sales than just being able to talk to people. But through that journey, I sold in various capacities. Probably my biggest capacities, I sold commercial printing, millions of dollars in commercial printing over a couple of years. Developed an entire division for a commercial print company. And then for the last 7 years, after that, I was a national sales trainer, award-winning. You're supposed to say that kind of stuff because that's, I don't know what the hell that even means. I mean, yes, I won awards, but who cares? And I did that, which was a lot of fun. And then, if anybody's ever read the great book called The E-Myth, right at 40 years old, it was September of 2017, I had what they have that call that entrepreneur hiccup. And I did the craziest dang thing I've ever done and jumped out on my own and launched my business. And I really thought 20 years as a sales guy, solid brand reputation around town. I don't know. I really thought when I launched that business that it was going to be sunshine and rainbows, and the world was going to say, "About damn time." I'm glad you showed up, and I'd be a multimillionaire in a matter of a few days, and life would be awesome. And yeah, at about 6 months in, I was looking at my wife, going, "Holy hell, what did I do?" You know, um,
Yeah.
uh, I have no idea how to be a business owner. I had no idea how to transition from employee to business owner, let alone change the mindset of a guy who spent 20 years being told what to do to now being the guy who has to create the vision and handle the operations and the sales and the accounting and everything. And holy heck. So I was on the verge of losing it all. I mean, but prior to that, we had bought our dream farm. We had our dream house. I had a second house on the property for my mother-in-law. I mean, we'd had great success, but up until that point, I had no idea what I was doing. So I had to look at my wife and go, "Babe, we're going to lose it all. We're going to lose everything. I don't know what to do." And I'll put the polite version of what she told me to your fans, but she basically said, "Get off your butt and go sell something." And I had one last presentation that I was giving, a speech, and I'd already told her, if the speech goes well, I'll keep the company running. If it's not, I'll go find a sales job, because I can find a sales job anywhere. And I left it all on the stage. Guy walked up to me and said, "I love your story. I love your energy. I love everything about you. Would you come tell your story in my podcast?" I said, "What's a podcast?" And this was April of 2018. And I went on a show and we had a blast. Because of his show, I picked up a client and I went, "Holy crap, I can go guest on podcast." And because we spent most of that show talking about my sales and my sales background. But I realized that I could go guest on shows and pick up clients. I was kind of like, hold my beer and watch this. And in the next 30 days, I did 67 shows as a
Wow.
guest. I just went nuts and
Wow.
deployed every tactic and strategy I could get my hands on to be a guest. And then it was around the 50th interview that I had done where I was on a really, really bad show. And I'm like, man, if this guy can have any success whatsoever, I'm launching a show. And I love telling everybody, at this point, it's a top 200 on iTunes, and, just having a lot of fun interviewing people all over the world. But it saved my business because it taught me procedures, processes. It taught me operational, it taught me, the better business development model. It taught me revenue models, and it did everything. So now, here I am sitting across from you and all of your listeners and fans. And it's all because I was able to find podcasting, and, it was that next leveling up I needed to do so I could evolve into the better version of myself and start really growing a successful business, a successful international brand, and, get paid to stand in front of rooms and behind microphones and flap my gums. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Well, it's funny because when you were saying about people telling you that you should go into sales because you like to talk and there's a lot more to sales, I was thinking about it, it's like, yeah, there's a lot more like listening.
Right.
And
Yeah. There's the whole process side of sales.
yeah,
I don't think there's anything such thing as a natural born listener. Or excuse me, a natural born salesperson. It's just not a thing, right?
yeah,
It is a learned thing, and it takes a lot of repetition. It takes a lot of willingness to get your teeth kicked in, and get hit and keep going and keep moving forward. And, it's learning and developing your own sales process and going for it. It's not what a lot of people think, where you screw everybody over and then go play golf on Friday. It's
yeah.
it's one of the most honorable professions in the world, I truly believe. It's just unfortunately that there's a lot of not nice people. That was really hard for me to clean up that phrase right there. But not nice people. I told Nicole, guys, that I was really going to watch my profanity on the show. If you listen to my show, it's all in. So kids, my show is not kid friendly. But there's a lot of people out there that just give sales a bad name. And,
Yeah.
I enjoyed when I was doing a lot of sales training, trying to change that typical status of a salesperson. and, teaching people that, sales is just a conversation. It's a conversation that happens to have an outcome, and you got to be okay with either way that outcome goes. And
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I first started selling and I thought, okay, well, what is business? Business is about sales. Got it. Okay. So how do I do this sales thing? And I was super shy at the time.
Right.
And so I realized really quickly that wasn't going to work. But the second thing is like, the scripts, right? They tell you, have a script and prepare and so forth. So I literally had this flow chart in front of me that I had got from somewhere that said, you say this, and then they're going to say this, and then you say this, and then they're going to say this. And I had it in front of me while I'm going to make these phone calls. And immediately, like the first call,
they didn't say what they were supposed to say.
They didn't say what they were supposed to say. And I'm like, what do I do with this? So I remember literally taking the piece of paper and going, okay, so I guess we're just going to, I don't know, wing this. And in the process of doing that, what you were talking about is learning how to have a conversation, and it's good to know all these closing. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Some of the things that worked for you in sales. I mean, it's good to know how to lead people through a process, but when it comes right down to it, if you've done it well, then, in my experience, you are co-creating the sale together. You're not trying to coerce somebody into it. So maybe talk about your approach to sales.
Yeah. The biggest thing I hate is this whole thought process that you got to close somebody. These guys that are like, my closing ratio is over the top, and, it's the ABC always be closing, Glengarry, Glen Ross, old school stuff. I just hate all that because a nice cat in the background, by the way.
Yeah. He just woke up.
Well, I live on a farm, so I got goats, dogs, chickens, cats, ducks. So I'm used to it. But
so if a duck walks by, don't be shocked.
Yeah, it would be fine. Or if you hear a rooster in the background, that's where it'll come from.
Nice.
But,
I did that just so I want you to feel at home.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Just make me feel more.
I just gave him the cue.
Yeah. Cat, stage
enter, stage right.
That's awesome. But there is no close in a sales call. And here's what I mean. I think the only person that can handle a close is the prospect themselves. And I agree with you, it's if you will go have a real conversation. And I love the way you said that. It's kind of that mutual building of the whole sale together. If you get to that point, the only question you need to ask at the end is, what do we do next? And they're going to tell you, right? They're going to walk you through it. And, they may honestly look at you and say, this is not what we're looking for. This is not a fit. And it's not about selling them again, and getting them to buy what you need. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. Go on to the next one. It's this whole, you've got to beat them up until they give in, and, you got to win. I just can't stand it because it becomes a transaction. Yeah. And transactions do not create companies. They create revenue, but it's short-term revenue. And I learned this the hard way, because when I first got into sales, I only thing that I knew was the greaseball sales methodology. You had to look a certain way, act a certain way. You had to get the close, and that was how I grew up in sales. And although I was doing high volumes of sales, I wasn't retaining clients. We would get a big deal done, and then, I'd go on to the next one. I didn't care about the client after that. It was on them. The company can figure out what to do with them. I got my portion done, but then I was just getting more up. I constantly had to go and get another sale and get another sale. And it was just this constant, movement of getting a sale until I realized that, it's not about the close. It's about building a true partnership, I don't want to say friend, because people get hung up on, creating friends, because I hate the phrase people do business with people they know, like, and trust. I hate and despise that phrase, because I don't have to like you to do business, but I do have to trust you. Right. And when you tell people it's all about, the know, like, and trust, people only hear the word like, and then they go in and make a lot of friends, but then never turns into business. Right. Yeah. So for me, it's about establishing trust. And once I learned that it was about getting the person you're sitting across from, realizing that they could trust that the words coming out of your mouth were truth. They could trust that the products or services you were offering were exactly what they needed. Then the sale became easy. Money goes off the table. You go and you have some really cool conversations.
And they'll like you because you solve their problem.
100%, right?
Yeah.
It's an after effect. I like that. It's a result of getting that trusting conversation, because when you first, especially the first time you meet a prospect, their guns are up. They're waiting to be sold something. And most people go in. I used to carry, when I sold commercial printing, this huge binder with samples and presentations. And, I might as well just walked into a sales call with a PowerPoint and said, okay, here we go. Right. And walked them all the way through it. And, I got to the point where I didn't even take a pen into the sales call, because it was more about going in and understanding them, what they're looking for, what their needs are, and having these real conversations and having the courage to look at them and go, that everything you guys do, it's really not a fit for us. Right. Yeah. Or, telling them that project's bigger than your company can handle, or, being able to say, this is a really, really good fit, but we're going to be higher priced than the person you're sitting next to. But having the courage to have those type of conversations, because every time that not every time, but a lot of times when I had those real conversations, hey, that project's bigger than we can handle. I can't tell you how many times they came back to us and said, okay, well, let's give it a go. See if you guys can figure it out. Because they trusted me in that moment. Yeah. Right. Because I was being real and honest and upfront with them, which is not something they saw often from other salespeople. Yeah. And, the more you go have what we've always called adult conversations, right? Where you weren't worried what they thought about you. You weren't worried about, your feelings. You were going in to build a trusting relationship, telling them. And I always told new sales guys, man, if you're a new sales guy, tell them. If you don't know a whole lot about your product and service, tell them, right? Because
they're going to find out anyway.
100%. and they're going to have more respect for you, right? Because it's the truth. I mean, I love telling people, when I sold commercial printing, I didn't know crap about commercial printing, and I sold it for 7 years. I mean, I knew enough to be dangerous, but if they got technical, I'd be like, hold on. I'm here to help partner up with you. Let me get somebody on my team that can handle all the spec side of things and handle all the details and everything else. I'll make sure everything runs smooth and we make sure the job goes through, but you are way above my pay grade right now. Meaning I have no idea what you just said, spiral coil, 3-hole punch and laminated crap. I just don't know. And they more often than not would laugh. And they're like, how do you sell so much, but yet you know nothing about it? Because you don't pay me to know about the printing. You're paying me to make sure your work and job gets taken care of. Yeah. And that's what my job is to make sure you hand us a PO and an order. We get it. The company gets it out the door. I handle that entire liaison process for you. Yeah. And it was amazing when you're real and authentic, in a sales call. It's amazing what happens in that moment for the prospect, and when I did sales training, one of the favorite things that I used to do is I would go right along with a new sales guy from one of my clients, but I would go, being the sales trainer, I would ride with the salesperson and go as the sales guy in training.
Oh, okay.
Go on their sales call.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a great way to go as a sales trainer, to go see what they're doing in live action.
Without making them feel uncomfortable, or the guy thinking that or a lady thinking that.
100%. And it was funny is, all the way to the sales call, me and this younger salesperson, it was usually a young salesperson that I was bringing up. Every once in a while I'd get a seasoned veteran that was just changing, companies. But all the way to the sales call, you'd have this fun conversation, talk about your families and where you're going over the weekend and, where you went to college or military, and you'd have this fun conversation. But then you'd pull up to the client and we'd step out of the car, and then the salesperson would pull this wicked Jekyll and Hyde moment, and all of a sudden they'd go stoic and all business-esque and everything else. And I'm not going to bail them out. And we'd go in the call and they would just be blowing the call. I mean, horrendously. And they would start looking at me, knowing that they're screwing up. They're like, so Donnie, what do you think? I'm like, dude, I'm just a sales guy in training. I have no idea what even to tell these guys. I see them get frustrated because I'm not bailing them out because they need to learn the experience,
Yeah.
right? And after the call would be over, we'd go out to the car and they're like, man, I think I did okay. I think I did really well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, you just blew it. And I'm like, you really, to be truthful, that was a horrible sales call. And they would sometimes get really flustered at me. I said, but let's break it down. Let's walk through, what made it such a bad sales call. And they're like, okay. And I would say, step one, what happened to the guy or gal that was riding with me on the way to the call that was talking about their family and their weekend and where they're going? What happened to that person when you got out of the car? And it was usually the biggest light bulb moment because, like when I was younger, they had this vision of who you had to be a salesperson. And you had to, this whole gregarious personality and all this other stuff. And they were trying to be somebody that they were not. And so they lost authenticity. When as soon as you lose authenticity, I can't say that word a second time, authenticity on a sales call, you lose any trust that you could possibly have, because even if you close that deal, your true self is going to come through eventually. And then as soon as that happened, that switch happens, now they lose trust in you because now they're not sure who they're getting, as far as a business transaction and everything else. So it was very, very telling. So 2 things people can absolutely do is be them damn self, and know that people want to do business with people. And the second thing is let your guard down, be willing to let them know that, hell, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. Right. And it's over your head at this point in time, because the more real and authentic you are, the better the conversation.
Yeah. I remember a few years back when social media and just digital media in general was becoming more popular. People would say to me, new salespeople, they'd say to me, it's now relationship marketing. We're now into relationship marketing. And I'm like, I have news for you. It's always been marketing. Yeah. How we do it. Principles have never changed. How we do it has, the methods have changed. But yeah, what I hear in there, you talk about this authenticity, and it's the same thing that in your business and even in podcasting, this authenticity. I know for myself, when I first started in podcasting, I was like, okay, I need everything perfect. And, here we are laughing about, there's a cat in the background,
right.
My sister-in-law just came in because I'm at my brother and sister-in-law's place. And, it's life, right? It's this is where I am today. And so, let's do it. And not trying to be perfect. That was really, really important for me because, in speaking, this is actually goes to public speaking, and you do a lot of that, of course, through your podcast and other things. It's like, I somehow developed along the way thinking that I needed to be perfect, that I needed to over prepare, and I needed to go up there and be so polished. And the problem was when I started doing that, and even in my sales presentations and teaching in when I was doing like a network marketing where you had to teach other people how to do what you were doing, they'd be like, wow, you're so good. You're so polished. And this is so, you'll be great in this, which is like the kiss of death in network marketing. Because that means they don't believe in themselves doing it, and it's like, no. So I actually started to screw up just, so that they could like intentionally screw up so that they knew that, you can do this. I mean, the first presentation I did, I forgot then this was genuine. I was so nervous. I forgot my name. And so I got up there and I'm like, hi, my name is, and it was like, there was nothing, there was nothing there. And it took me a moment, but you know what? People laughed and we got on from there. But
I love that because, I don't teach laughter in a sales process, but I will tell you, in a sales process, a speech, anything, if you get them laughing and it's real, it's authentic, you will establish trust a lot quicker because it means they're letting their guard down.
Yes.
I remember, I think I was around 16 years old and I was a part of my oldest brother's wedding, and I was supposed to read, I don't know, a few scripture verses. And, you know, I'd already done some speaking in front of crowds and whatnot. And I'd already told mom, was like, you know, you need to write down all of the, you know, the scriptures that I was supposed to read. And I'm like, Mom, I got this. I got to memorize. Don't worry about it. She goes, just do me a favor and write the damn things down. And I'm like, I got this, Mom, no problem. And what they didn't tell me is there's going to be like 500 people in this freaking church for this wedding. And, you know, my sister-in-law grew up with Gwen Stefani and her family. So all of No Doubt was there. And it was a big deal of the people that were going to be at this wedding. And I had no idea. So I just remember, you know, getting up in front of this, you know, 500 person, you know, wedding. And here I am getting up to supposed to, you know, tell these scripture verses, and I go blank. I'm in front of all these people and I have no idea. Mom's down in like the second or third row and she starts tapping her chest. And I'm like, why the hell is she tapping her boob? And she just kept tapping her chest. And then she started pointing. And so I put my hand there. She had put the index card in my pocket. So I was able to pull it out. And then as soon as I started reading, I was able to nail the whole speech. But it was just that moment, you know. And
Mom knew.
yeah, of course, Mom always knows.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just that whole thing that once I got in the rhythms, you know, it all came to me. And it's the same thing on sales calls, right? I mean, when you go in there and you're so prepared over the top and everything else, the problem with that is you'll start using that as a crutch. And, you know, I tell anybody, it's whatever you take on the sales call, you're going to use in the sales call. And that's when you're going to lose authenticity. Right?
Yes.
Because when things aren't going the way that needs to be going, you're going to start leaning on that stuff, your binder, your presentation. And look, 99.9% of the time, they don't care. Right?
Yeah.
They don't care what your stuff is, you know, but if you need to put an index card in your pocket to help you figure out how to get started, Mom says it's a good plan. So do what Mom says and, you know, give yourself some cheater notes, but tell them, and be like, look, I've got some things that I know I need to tell you about the company and the products and things we have, but I knew coming in here I wouldn't forget them because I'm so nervous. Is it okay if I pull my little index cheater card out of my pocket? And they're going to laugh at you, right? Right? But it's real. It's authentic. It's you. It's the same thing. You know, it's all about letting your hair down.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not a big fan of things like Toastmasters. And some of these other words. Now, I will tell people that Toastmasters, like their first 10 sessions they do, brilliant. Absolutely amazing, teaching people, you know, the process and thought, you know, on speaking. But if you're going to ever be on stages in front of rooms, do the 10 and then get out. Because otherwise they're going to try and turn you into a robot. And it is inauthentic as hell. But
yeah, I remember one of my mentors, I was doing a certification program, and it was when I owned a franchise that he had set up. And so we go through this, and I'm in front of this the audience, and he's like, oh, I get it. People like you. So like, even though I was screwing up, people had empathy for me because I was being real.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful thing. Let's shift gears here and talk about this shift from being, because you mentioned about this shift from being an employee and having the mindset of somebody telling you what to do, being an entrepreneur. And not just even an entrepreneur, because I think there's a difference between an entrepreneur and being a business owner.
100% agree with you.
Yeah. So talk about, everybody's like, I'm an entrepreneur because I own a business.
Yeah, no, entrepreneur is the new buzzword right now. And I tell everybody, entrepreneur is like the new MLM, network marketing thing, because everybody's like, oh, I get to be an entrepreneur, so I get to pick my own hours, my own schedule, and my own business. Like, yeah, you can pick your own hours. Just pick which 90 you want to work, you know.
I was going to say, make sure there's enough of them.
Right. Yeah.
Although time is not but then again, time is not, I don't know if you've noticed this. I've noticed a lot of these entrepreneurs, to your point there, but you know, working the 90 hours, you got to be willing to put the time in, but not thinking that just by putting time in, you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
Because I hear that a lot, and it's like, no,
movement does not equal success.
Yeah.
The proper actions guarantee success. There's a huge difference. You know, but for me, even as a sales trader, I always told people that as a salesperson, you need to run your personal book of business like you're the CEO of the company.
Yes.
And I told people that all the time, that you got to run it like it's your business. Here's the trick. When I would tell people that, it was real, it was authentic. It was my belief. The problem was I had no idea what the heck being a CEO or a business owner actually meant. I just didn't wrap my head around it. So even though, and I love telling people, when I launched my business, everything I thought about being a business owner or an entrepreneur, whatever, everything that I thought was a truth was absolutely false, because I had not put myself in a position prior to that to where the world was 100% on me. And it's interesting. I was in straight commission sales most of my sales career. No, I mean, I had some draws here and there, but it was straight commission. So if I didn't sell, I didn't eat. And even that did not prepare me for being a business owner. And here's my definition difference between entrepreneur and business owner. Let's get that out of the way. Is an entrepreneur is the craziest person on the damn earth. These are the people that constantly have new ideas. They create these business entities. Two is going to fail. The third one's going to work, but they're only going to run that third one for a few years before they launch another one, right? They're
Yeah.
constantly in this creation mode of what's next. How are they changing here? And most of them are building to sell something, right? They're building to a point to where they can offload it because they love the creation side of things. And I think that's where most people don't understand what an entrepreneur is they're the ones creating and carving the trails of the new things. A business owner is somebody who wants to create this one thing, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it more like the legacy side of things. They want to ride this one business idea and bet it all here, and this is going to be their ride. And most people that are trying to do this whole entrepreneur thing are really business owners, because they don't even like the process of creating the business and the minutia of the sales and operations and the marketing. They don't even want to necessarily figure all that out. They just kind of want the success on the back end,
Yeah.
nowadays. But
Great distinction. Yeah.
thank you. But when I made that move from employee to business owner, two things really happened for me. One, I grew up very, very, very fast. Now, I was 40 years old when I did it, so I tell everybody I'm a late bloomer. But I grew up tremendously because I even remember the drive home was tough, because I realized that was the first time in my life that I had truly bet on me. you know, 4 years of Marine Corps, sales careers, national sales training, all these things that I've done had found success on, but I had never fully bet on me. And now I was in a spot where everything, everything was on me. And if I didn't build this thing, then failure was on me as well. In sales, you can always kind of figure it out, right? You can get the next deal done, but business has got a lot more bigger distinction to it. The second thing that I realized really, really, really quickly is I didn't know myself, right? And it wasn't till a little while after I'd launched my business that one of my mentors I was sitting down with, he goes, "I should have told you, Donnie, that launching your business will be the greatest tool you will ever use to discover out who you are and what you're made of.
Yes.
Because you are going to be so stacked up against it, you're going to be forced to level up your game."
Yeah.
And he was absolutely right. I mean, uh, it was wild crawling inside my own head and figuring out what made me tick, um, as I developed and grew this business. It was a wild experience, and that's why I enjoy my books. In the editing stages right now. But it's one of the biggest things I talk in there is, if you want to figure out how to get out of your own way, launch a business, because you're going to find out everything about you and how you work, how your mechanics work, how your mind works, or you'll shut down the business. And it's uh, the person that can keep getting punched in the face by life and keep moving forward that wins. Because my whole thought process was it was just going to work. Like, miraculously, this business was going to skyrocket, and I was going to be easy. But what I didn't know is I spent that first 6 months creating a job and not a business. And that's what was completely destroying me as far as trying to build a successful business. I really was like, oh, I just want to be off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't want to work, on the weekends. I don't want to do this. And then one of my mentors looked at me and he's like, dude, part of being a business owner is understanding that you got to work 7 Mondays so you can get 7 Saturdays. I'm like, crap. So it was, pull the boots on, let's get to work and start figuring it out. But there was, it was such a leveling up and such an evolution for me to become that next version of myself. Get a little less egocentric, get a little more humble, and get a lot more gratitude for other people that have carved the trail that I could jump on their coattails and follow their lead in some of the stuff. And then realize that a lot of things that are taught out there in the industry and a lot of the mouthpieces that are out there, they're full of crap, right? Because their systems aren't duplicatable, their methodologies aren't duplicatable because they're building it for their personality type. And there's so many different personality types out there. So it's been an interesting adventure and a ride, but I'm telling you, if you want to be a business owner, you better get prepared, because you're going to go on one heck of a rodeo.
Well, there's so many lessons in there from your own experience, and it's when you're talking about learning who you are, what you're all about. It's like the greatest personal development course on the planet is starting your own business.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, one of the things that struck me when I heard you're talking about your wife and how your wife said you better get going or something.
Yeah.
There's also the motivation.
That was a nice version of it.
That was the nice version. Yes, I figured. But like there's a motivation behind it. I had there's a lot of people that start things and then they give up when it gets tough. And you got to have something. There's a saying, you got to have somebody to win for, or something to win for, something to go towards. And so for you, what was that thing for you that really drove you to figure it out? Because, when it gets uncomfortable, there's a lot of people that give up and they say, forget this. I'm going to go back to doing something that's comfortable because I don't want to look at myself. I don't want to dig deep into that.
Yeah, it was interesting for me is, I've done a lot of this for my wife, and keep moving forward. And she's been amazing. And I love all the guys that come out and say, my wife, stood beside me the whole 9 yards. Yeah, my wife stood beside me with a foot square at my butt the entire ride, But
I like her already.
Oh yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. She really is. But the thing is, I think one of the greatest things that's kept me on my ride, and I'm not the woo-woo guy that's into all the metaphysical crap and all that, but I tell everybody I'm just half woo. I'm not full woo-woo, I'm half woo, all right? But the one thing that I kept telling myself through that journey is, this is that moment. Right. This is that time. This is that spot they talk about in all the books, all the tapes, all the seminars, all the workshops I went through. This is that 1 foot from gold. This is that moment. If you can keep pushing through here, it's going to start breaking loose, and it's going to start breaking loose, and it's going to start breaking loose. And, I think for me, that was the thing that helped me to start reeling in the business, figuring out what the business really was, what the trajectory was, and keep taking consistent action moving forward. And I think what happens to most people is they won't take that consistent action. They won't do that thing that allows them to level up their business and move forward. They're doing stuff, and stuff a lot of times feels like work, but it's unnecessarily movement, and movement does not mean action, right? It's unnecessary movements that disguise themselves as action that's growing their business, when in truth, when they get to the end of the day, they wonder why they don't feel mentally right. They feel off, and it's because they're looking back going, well, what the hell did I actually do today? I really didn't even accomplish anything other than this kind of busy work, idea and thought process. And it's because that whole, there's a lot of things that go on behind it, but I think, it's that whole thought process where they're finally starting to understand that it's going to take a lot of work to get the freaking little engine that could to finally start moving up the damn hill. And that whole thing. And for me, it was that moment of realizing, wow, for once in my life, I've really got to get to work, and I've really got to start taking the right actions, because sales didn't come easy for me. You know, they throughout my career, I did find some cool success. And once you get some momentum going, sales got easier, but it didn't come easy. And, you know, in my business, I was really expecting it just to continue to come easy. And so I never had to work hard in the sales world, you know, but now running a business, it really, you know, was teaching me that, you know, what a real day of work really was by taking the right actions and moving forward. It is the absolute best tool in the world to figure out what you're made of. And, you know, here's the other thing that, you know, was kind of that thing that kept me churning. When you're a business owner, your wins, they're on you. Your losses, they're on you. And
Yeah.
everybody gets to see them on display.
Yeah.
And the fear of what other people would think about me not succeeding was one hell of a driver through this whole process, because everybody always thought, when anything Donnie touches, he's going to win at. It's going to turn to gold, you know, all their crap that came out of their mouths. So part of it was, you know, my wife kicking me into the butt, and, you know, what everybody else was, you know, would think if this didn't actually pan out.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are going to relate to that story. And there's, again, there's so many lessons, so many nuggets in there, just your own experience. Now, your podcast, let's talk about Success Champions. You have amazing guests on your show. You were
Thank
talking
you.
about the fact that you recently had some pretty extraordinary guests and have
Yep.
been inundated with guest requests.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what your show is about. I mean, Success Champions, obviously, you know, kind of suggests you.
Yeah. So it was interesting when I launched the show. I knew two things. I knew growing up, I love watching the after school type specials, you know, and I love the inspirational stories and seeing where somebody came from and what they overcame to get where they are. So, those things, I always found some inspiration in those. So I knew that if I could find other people that had overcome some really cool things, that I could learn a lot from them. So I wanted to find cool people that I could interview and hear their stories and what they're into, so I could have my own epiphanies by learning from them. As the show progressed, so that's how the show launched. As the show progressed along, what I realized is I was actually more focused on what was going on in their mind during that time. And I love telling everybody that it's kind of evolved into, you know, if you've ever seen the old Lou Ferrigno Dating Myself Incredible Hulk series, you know, there's the whole beginning of that series where is Bruce Banner and his wife and him have this horrible car wreck, and his wife dies in the car, and he's trying to lift the car off and he can't get the car off. And he starts going on this journey of figuring out how other people found this astronomical strength. And there's a scene like with a mom whose son's trapped in their car, and she's able to lift the car and get the son out. And so he starts, you know, going through that and in that experience, and that's where he gets zapped with the gamma rays, whatever it is, and becomes the Incredible Hulk. And so I realized that what I was searching for and hearing all these interviews wasn't necessarily what they overcome, is what was in the mind of the person, what was going through their head that allowed them to go through and overcome. So I think that the deep diving into the mindset behind things was really what started getting more and more people to dive into the show and the stories of all these amazing people. And we've covered topics from all over I mean, everything comes down to like a business spin, but the topics to get to the business side of what they overcame can be just numerous. And the bigger guests started coming in when they realized that there was actually a real message behind it. Wasn't, hey, let's talk about your accolades and, you know, your 2 million copies of your books or your multi-billion-dollar company or whatever else. It was more focused on, you know, where were they at mentally going through that process. And you know, that's what really started taking the show off, and it's where we started finding a lot of success and downloads. And then the latest thing, because of that, really, really interesting is I was doing a daily podcast. So Monday through Friday, a new show launched every day. But the Friday episodes was me just kind of ranting on, my journey, my life, what I went through. And, one of my ambitions is to be on a lot bigger stages, and I'm start doing a lot more keynoting and all over the world on that. I'm working on, a gig in London, UK right now. And the whole thing is that's what I thought the podcast was going to do, was help, pole vault me into this world. But one of my mentors and coaches, and guys, if you don't have mentors and coaches, you're just playing the game wrong, just so you know. But one of my coaches, I'm sitting down with him, and he looked at me and goes, Donnie, you're an idiot with your show, right? And I'm like, what do you mean I'm an idiot? I'm one of the top podcasts in the world. How am I an idiot? All my coaches taught me this way, by the way. And I said, okay, walk me through. He goes, I know you want to be on big stages. I know you want to do all this stuff. He goes, but you are an absolute rock star, putting other people on a pedestal and really getting them to tell a great story, and, having them send you other cool name people and everything else. You are amazing about putting people on a pedestal, but you're not doing anything to get you on stage because you make it so much about the other person. And I went, crap. All right. So I went back and I looked at
That's sounding vaguely familiar.
Yeah. I mean, it was an eye-opening moment. So I went back through all those Friday episodes and started looking at the numbers and realized that most of my Friday episodes, I got higher downloads than I was for even some of the big name guests I was getting on my show. And I went, crap. So I stopped doing the Friday episodes, and we're building it right now, but I'm launching Donnie Talks. It's a new podcast coming out, and it's just going to be me. And I've got a very cool Facebook group where we built because of the podcast, and I get a lot of interaction in there. And a lot of them, when I told them what I was thinking, they were like, 100%, you've got to go in and do this whole Donnie Talks thing. So we're all building this out right now. They're helping me up with the content, what should be in the episodes and everything. So it's really kind of fun that the community's come together to help me build this whole thing. But that'll be launching in May. We're going to be launching that one, and it's all going to be about everything I talk about in the book, business, sales, networking, your mental game, getting out of your own way, beating back your mental gremlins, which I talk about a lot, stepping into, and I won't say the number one word everybody correlates it to, but it begins with a B-A-D, and then there's a three-letter word after that. But everybody loves it when I talk about unleashing your inner
badass person. Yes.
Oh, you said,
yeah,
okay.
We can say cool. That.
All right, cool.
I don't think that makes this podcast explicit.
All right, cool. Right, but that's what people like is that it's me kind of talking that real, authentic. You got to go get punched in the face by life to start figuring things out, and really start betting on yourself. And and I jump into the fire, which I talk about all the time. Is you got to start doing the things that scare the hell out of you. And when you start doing those things, you really start figuring out you. So, I mean, it goes back to podcasting saved my business. Everything has evolved because I tried something new in my business and it worked. Now I've tried a lot of things in my business that haven't worked. Right. But this one just happened to work. And, I thought I was going to be a motivational speaker, right? That was the goal I was going. I didn't think I was going to be standing on stages teaching people how to podcast, right? I didn't think I was going to stand on stages talking about how podcasting saved my business. That just wasn't the trajectory of my business. But now that's a lot of times what people are bringing me in to speak about, especially now because it's really podcasting getting the wheel going, and I tell everybody, if your business currently doesn't have a voice, you are playing the game wrong. I know you're hearing it from the gurus, do social media, all this, but your business needs a voice. And if you're a big business, don't think about, what would I say to the general consumers? I'm helping companies right now launch internal podcasts for their employees, not just their, the listeners on iTunes. We're launching internal shows. Because think about all the communications you need in a business. So there's just so many routes that companies can take. It's been fun. And part of me is constantly holding on, going, okay, this is rolling. How do I keep the right trajectory of the business as we continue to move forward? Yeah.
That's fantastic. And yeah, great point, because there's internal customers and external customers. And
Mhm.
oftentimes we're thinking about the external customers, how do we reach them? But what about the companies?
Yep.
And I heard I forget who it was, to credit them, but they said, any business who does not in the next few years, every business will have a podcast,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
if not, they won't have a voice.
Yep.
And so, yeah, very, very
I wish I
powerful.
knew who it was, because I go follow them, because they're spot on. I
Yeah.
mean, um,
They were
we're
probably on your show at some point. It was somebody well known.
but I haven't thrown this out there, but we're starting, even a city podcast. So right now I partnered up with a local podcast studio in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're launching Fort Worth Talks, where it's
Nice.
business podcast focused just on the city of Fort Worth. And
Yes.
giving the city a voice. And we've got, backing from a lot of the bigger name CEOs. People don't know that Fort Worth in the US is the 15th largest city in the US. And, so we got some really big name companies here. And, so we're going to, start bringing them in, interviewing them. And I hate the phrase, put a city on a map, because it's already on a map.
Yeah.
So we're giving the city a voice, and,
Nice.
giving it a voice to the world. So, it's just amazing where podcasts are going right now and the things they're doing with it. So like I said, we're just holding on to the wave at the moment.
If I'd slowed down long enough to be in a city for any length of time, I think that would be a great idea. That is great. So people can go to Donnie Boivin.com is your website.
Yeah.
To make sure I pronounce it right. And also Success Champs Podcast.com is also another one to go to. Now, you had a free gift that you wanted to give our listeners.
Yeah, they can get a couple. It's up to them. So I have some fun ones. My favorite one is if they send, go to my website, DonnieBoivin.com, and just click on free gifts. There's a whole bunch of things there. The number one thing that everybody laughs at is I've got a journal on there called "That's Not How You Journal, Jackass," and that's probably the number one download I get on there. But it talks about how journaling really saved my sales career, because it helped me get out of my own head. So everybody calls it the Jackass Journal. So go download that. But if they send me a text to 817-318-6030, 817-318-6030, they'll get a free, or they got to send their email to that, but they'll get a free PDF of 5 tools that are free that you need to launch your podcast. And
That's
get
cool.
them into the process, so they can go get that as well. So,
yeah.
But the Jackass Journal is fun. There's a strength thing on there. There's, how to know if you're, playing defense in life versus offense. So a lot of fun things we threw out there just to give people enough stuff to go to work on themselves.
I love that. Yeah. I love that, because I talk a lot about playing to win versus playing not to lose.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Donnie, thank you so much. And sharing, I love the fact that, this hasn't been about, although you've been sharing a lot about business and entrepreneurship, sales and mindset, but sharing through your own story has been really a pleasure, just hearing how.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And everybody keeps asking me about, how's the book going to be? And I'm like, the book is just this. It's me walking through all of these processes, but sharing my screw ups along the way of how I screwed up all this stuff to figure it all out.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. Well, we'll have all those links in the show notes at leadersoftransformation.com, and you can find them there. If you're going on leadersoftransformation.com and you're looking for this episode later on, you just type in Donnie and it'll pop up. There's a search field to be able to do that. So
it's DONNIE. There's no Y in my name.
Oh, there you go. Yes. Thank you for the distinction there. And you know what? I always say, leaders of transformation, take action. Take action. Text Donnie, get those free tools to launch a podcast. Go on his website, check out those free resources, and take action, because without taking action, nothing happens. You can watch and listen to podcasts and videocasts all day, but it won't do you any good until you actually get down to business and say, okay, well, how is this going to impact my life today? How am I going to do things differently in my business today? How am I going to, even like in sales, it's like, what am I going to do today to use what I learned, to apply it and make a difference. So I encourage you to do that. Pick something and apply it today. And we'd love to hear your stories. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com. You can go on social media, find us there as well. We'd love to hear your stories and let us know how we can support you along your journey. And with that, we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon. Until then, have a great day.